All right, so streaming
Gurmol,
started. So
Gurm or Gurmol?
today we have Ravi here from Viggen Robotics on this podcast episode. Ravi, do you want to share your background in Viggen Robotics and how you kind of got into tech and engineering and your journey so far?
Yeah, for sure. I'd like to say thanks, Gurmol, for having me on this podcast here. Yeah, like you said, my name is Ravi Mani. I'm from the founder of Viggen Robotics and founder of Rezu Software. I guess a little bit of my journey. First, I'm a little bit, maybe a little bit more unique in the sense that I've kind of considered myself more of a hands-on engineer. I actually don't have an engineering degree from a university. But I do have a degree in communications and marketing, coupled with 6 years building solar cars at the University of Calgary, and developing their racing program. I was able to sidestep kind of a traditional university style learning ecosystem by offsetting it with first hand, what I believe is hands-on experiential learning. So took what I liked to learn about, which is computational fluid dynamics, carbon fiber structures, um, anything solar or solar related, battery technology related, and high efficiency motors designs were in my wheelhouse. So the University of Calgary's racing program allowed me to do that firsthand. I spent 6 years as a manager there, traveled the world, built cars, which honestly kept me going in the engineering field. When I finished university, I took my first job, believe it or not, into the world of banking and finance. Got to pay the bills somehow, so I did that, which I found as very eye-opening because as a founder, it's nice to know how money and credit lending and all that stuff works, not only on the personal side but from the business side. So a lot of great insight there. But I had an itch that needed to be kept getting scratched. And being living in Calgary my entire life, the 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 oil and gas industry here is part and parcel of being here. But I want to do something in oil and gas tech. I was lucky enough to find a job in a production engineering company that was building hardware um, for oil and gas technology. So once the oil pumps were online and producing oil, our technology would sit on top of the oil well itself and transmit data. I was able to spend 6 years there, being the mechanical lead because I was able to design and 3D prototype and build the tech that we needed to at the time as a startup. And then yeah, that just kept the itch going. I transferred that company from went from that company um, to try my hands at enterprise level software integration. So that was with Rockwell Automation. And through Rockwell Automation, having the opportunity to see how global companies are using automation strategies and building their e-commerce platforms was really quite interesting to learn about how um, it's how much more difficult it is to make change to a living, breathing e-commerce and products-based system while everything is in motion. It's not as easy as saying, "Oh, why doesn't somebody do something like this?" Well, there's a reason now why it's not as fast as we want it to do, and I was able to learn the reasons why and the regulations behind it internationally at an international level. But nonetheless, with going back to your intro, why I kind of started Vegan Robotics and what it did is while working while working in the oil field and working with Rockwell Automation, I had my son and my first kid, and it was during COVID lockdown, and they were our city was implementing that parks couldn't be kids couldn't go in the parks. So my kid was really small. He really liked going on parks, but lockdown was preventing anybody from going onto the parks unless the parks had been sanitized. Me being a tinkerer and a maker, I went and I found an old RC car that I had, and like, you know what? I bet you I could probably put a pump sprayer from one of those little Vileda mops. So I just wrecked. I got forced into quarantine in my basement because I had just come back from a work from a work trip. So my wife's like, "New baby, stay upstairs. You stay downstairs." Well, I'm gonna be here for a week. What do I do? So I went to my lab, found an old RC car. I watched my wife spray down all these different surfaces, and I'm like, there's got to be a better way to do this. And then the playground lockdowns were happening, so I'm like, why don't I make a robot that does this? And then Essentially, that's what happened. I built a small little RC-based robot that would spray down playgrounds. It was initially the first kind of what I would call the very, very first Zeus. It was effective for spraying down playgrounds, so we were able to actually use the playground by our place for that. That caught the attention of some people at the city of Calgary asking if I wanted to do something a little bit bigger, which I upscaled the technology and then I made it into a little bit more robust and able to clean and spray down bus shelters. Um, so with that being said, that kind of continued to give me the ignition to say like, look, you've got something that can be done here, that's good for the planet. So why don't you keep doing it? And side note, I've always wanted to do robotics. The one thing I wanted it to do is, and this came back from my time being in the oil field, was just seeing trash being blown everywhere on my drive out to fields and stuff. As much as we claim that Calgary, Canada, is like a really nice, clean place, it is. But we're still subject to the forces of wind and just debris being picked up remotely, regardless of how good of an effort that we try to do. It just happens. So I was thinking, well, why can't we make a Roomba for green spaces? So in my brain, I was like, why can't we have a Roomba picking up cigarette butts? And that kind of stuck in my brain. And then when I got quarantined with my robot and the kids and everything, I was like, well, why don't I try to do um, spraying down of playgrounds? But in the meantime, in the back of my brain, it's like ultimately, once COVID finishes, what are we going to do next? And that's where trash collection came in because trash is everywhere. And even though Calgary's a pretty clean city, we can still make so much more impact globally. And that's where our next phase of our technology is going to, as I've learned over the last 5 years of how to do better and design better. Sorry, I
Awesome.
totally went over.
That's a great story. No, that's awesome. So for the robots, are they like deployed in the city or in parks or any areas right now? Are they picking stuff up? So you mentioned they pick up cigarettes, they pick up debris. What kind of areas are you focusing on? So what kind of trash are they picking up? And is there kind of like any community groups or meetups where people can use the cars or get together and kind of clean the city? Like, how are you building a community with the robots, and are people coming together? Because this is an amazing solution to have, and it's really using robotics in this era as well. Like a lot of AI stuff is happening, but you're actually using robotics to do environmental cleanup, which is should be something that everyone's doing. So how do you see people coming together and using this technology and kind of growing? And can it be used like globally? Like you're starting local, but can it be even taken even further than that and be used globally?
Yeah, so that's a great point. When I initially I started to build this and deploy our first small little Zeuses within our playgrounds, and then just having two machines kind of just cleaning up and doing those spray downs, that caught the attention. Once the summer rolled around of 2019 or 2020, when Alberta was like, you know what, we're not going to do lockdowns anymore.
Mm,
It caught the attention of people in community groups. They
mm,
were seeing the videos I was putting on Facebook, like, hey, and they invited me and said, hey, look, we're doing a community cleanup. Would you be interested in just coming out with your machine?
mm,
At that time, I was just showing the sprayer, and then I decided, well, I'm in the background. I was kind of working on trying to build a trash collector,
mm,
just proving out the next phase in case COVID didn't we weren't following lockdown laws anymore,
mm,
and true and lo and behold, we weren't anymore. So
mm,
it's a good thing that I kind of made that sidestep to continue pushing on with making the trash collection machine because
mm,
I said, you know what, I'll do one better. I'll bring a small little trash collecting machine
mm,
to a community cleanup event. So in
mm,
my community, I brought our
mm,
machine
mm,
um, and started to just pick up small little trash, cigarette butts specifically around like the that weren't being picked up. So everybody was
mm,
using the little hand grabbers, which is
mm,
great to pick up a lot of the trash. But the way one of our sweeper heads works is it's kind of like a vacuum head that or a
mm,
bristle head that just spins,
mm,
but it has enough spinning force on it that it's able to pick up the little tiny cigarette butts
mm,
and throw them into the trash collecting hopper.
mm,
And that was enough that we were able to just deploy the unit itself around just closely around the perimeter of our community center.
mm,
And it was picking up trash, picking up a lot of cigarette butts, stuff that people were not necessarily seeing with its eyes.
mm,
Our technology still at the same time is pretty agnostic into what it collects.
mm,
Funny story is that we were deploying. A few years later, we deployed and have been running this thing around the city of Calgary by the Central Library and Platform Calgary.
Mm,
Um, in one summer, we were running it and we were checking the hopper, and it had managed to collect a Tim Hortons sandwich and we collected a bunch of bacon,
oh
of
wow.
all things. Yeah, it was kind of gross, but pretty neat to see that even our machine could pick up bacon. So we have now been able to carry some bacon with Zeus, which which is great. It shows that yeah, we can pick up a lot of things that we're saying we do.
Mm,
But yeah, going back to where we're deploying is where we've been deploying kind of small scale locally just to
mm,
prove out the tech and get some eyes on the company
mm,
with our two machines, and then we deployed our largest machine. I'll just kind of show it to you here. Deploy Zeus. So this is our latest machine here. Pull it up. So this is the one that you might have maybe seen running around downtown. If you haven't, no worries, because we're kind of sporadic when we get called into action by the cities. But
mm,
this is actually being cleaned up at the University of Calgary. But on
mm,
it, you can see this is our first engineered machine that
mm,
has treads. It's quite heavy, but it
mm,
does pick up. This is the one that was actually picking up bacon.
mm,
Um, but in this iteration, when I designed this machine, I thought it was like this is going to be the unit that's going to be um, meant for global deployment.
mm.